Hello, everyone. Everyone's doing good today. I guess we caught everyone after they've taken their naps. So we should be wide awake and ready to have a good time talking about artificial technology. And of course, my name is Solomon Wilcox. I'm with Russo Partners, and I'm joined by a couple of really good, talented men today who are going to tell us a lot about artificial technology in healthcare, everything from its relevance, everything from application, as well as regulatory guidelines. So we get to talk about in what ways artificial technology is going to change healthcare. You guys ready?
Sure.
First of all, we have joining us Simon Arkale, co-founder and CEO of Synthetica Bio. And of course, we should know this about Simon. He's an athlete, pole vaulter from Australia, two-time Olympian in 1992 and 1996, right?
Yep.
Now, he's also co-founder of 7 venture-backed companies, including Deep Lens, Prediction Software, and Versify. And you raised over $100 million in selling those companies, am I correct?
That's right, yeah.
And doing well today. Also joining us, Winshan Fang, CEO and co-founder of Spectral AI. He spent 20 years of experience in pioneering market disruptive natural speech recognition and real-time imaging systems and AI-driven predictive medical solutions. He also helped to build companies that use natural speech and recognition in the 1990s and imaging for self-driven cars in the early 2000s. And his company just signed a contract with the U.S. government for $149 million in contracts. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
All right. Well, let's dive right into it, guys. First of all, tell us a little bit more about your companies and in what way artificial technology is changing healthcare, and in what ways are you guys implementing that technology to be innovative in changing healthcare as a whole?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. But yeah, my last company was a company called Deep Lens, and it was an AI company that focused on matching oncology patients to clinical trials. And with that and a previous company called Prediction Software, we were building these really hardcore supervised machine learning models that took months and months of taking huge amounts of data. And after months with a very expensive data scientist, you would end up with one model that did one thing. And it just seemed like a lot of friction. And we were lucky enough to roll Deep Lens technology out into community oncology providers, and we got to about 250 locations, and ended up selling the company to a company called Paradigm in New York. And after taking a bit of time off, thinking, gee, it's kind of boring pretending to be retired, this thing called ChatGPT came out. And I think we all kind of felt it at the time that this was a much different way of doing things. Artificial intelligence was previously that very narrow, very deep, and very powerful technology. But generative AI, as it's known, was something that was going to be very, very different. The problem with ChatGPT is that if you work in the biopharma industry and you are at work and you have something that may be a company secret, a paper that was written internally, some genomics data that you've gathered through one of your clinical trials or results, that's pretty private. And you could not use that to basically create a prompt to upload into ChatGPT and then somehow get a response, because you're effectively giving it away to the universe for free at that point. Many big companies have banned that sort of technology. And so we thought, being enterprise software people, we brought a band back together and said, look, how can we think about this and make it actually usable in industry, but focus it on healthcare and life sciences? So we did that with the idea that we would build a very secure platform, and we've done that in one of the big vendors, in this case, Microsoft Azure, making it incredibly secure and SOC 2 compliant and HIPAA, everything that you would need to do to have full security. But also, every individual user or company would get their own tenant, and so anything they upload into it would be their own data. And the platform had to be more knowledgeable and more accurate than ChatGPT. So we partnered with a company that became our first customer, and they gave us access to 10 years of health data on 220 million Americans. And this is specific lab data with test results across the spectrum. And that makes the platform a lot more intelligent and knowledgeable and less likely to hallucinate. As you may have seen, this technology, if you ask it something about yourself or something you know a lot about, it's going to come back very confidently and give you the answer. And it may be wrong, but it's going to act really confident like it's 100% right. It's pretty hard to think of a future where we might be, hey, how should I treat this lung cancer patient? And it comes back with a confident but wrong answer. So obviously you can't be risking that. And so we decided to go about building a platform like this. And we reached out to some VCs that we knew, and we were lucky enough to get 5 VCs to invest in our pre-seed round. That closed a couple of months ago, and we've already delivered our first solution to our first customer. So that was the problem we saw, this whole sea change of this type of artificial intelligence technology, and now we're up and running.
Wensheng, how is Spectral AI using artificial technology to really sort of reshape the landscape of healthcare?
Yeah, and Spectral AI, we even have the AI in the company name now, and it's a Dallas-based AI company, and we're using medical imaging combined with AI technology. I'm actually a typical looking Texan these days. So the deal with all that is we're doing predictive medical diagnostics. And in this way, we shorten the usual wait time, the current wait and see kind of a practice from 21 days in the burn care to 30 days in diabetic foot ulcer care, all the way to day 1. The burn patients nowadays need to wait up to 21 days for the surgical decision or not. Why? Because it's 50 to 70% for the physicians to have an accuracy to decide whether that burn will heal or not. For the diabetic foot ulcer, 30 days to 45 days is very standard for them to take the patients through standard care to decide, that's not a healing wound. Now we can use advanced wound care product. For us, we shorten that period. We provide much faster and more accurate access to the treatment decisions. Clinicians need to treat the patients at the end of the day. So if we can bring all this information to the clinicians much faster so they can treat those patients much faster. Burn is a national priority. We all remember 9/11 when the Twin Tower fell. It killed over 3,000 Americans instantly. If the Twin Tower didn't fall, we have on our hand over 3,000 burn victims, and our country is not ready for that. People don't get burned that much anymore. So we need something just like the quick COVID test kit in that kind of mass casualty situation to tell the physicians where to send the burn patients. Are you to the OR, to the routine care, or go home? We don't have that technology until Spectral AI's DeepView, DeepView. That's the name of our technology and our product. What we do is we use medical imaging plus AI to instantly image the wound area, and we only highlight the area of a non-healing wound. That's what we do. Compared to the 50 to 70% of the burn physicians, we're at a 92% accuracy on day 1. For the diabetic foot ulcer, there's no existing benchmark. We're at 86% accuracy with our training study for our AI algorithm. So those are the things we're focusing on because we want to enable the physicians and healthcare providers to reach to those treatment decisions much faster with much more accurate and informed decisions. That's how we are working on shaping the healthcare industry. And thank God we have the U.S. government to really take this to heart. They have invested $123 million into the company for the technology development. That's what we are at today. And 2 weeks ago, I signed this additional $150 million. It's actually 149.979800. So I can't announce it as 150. That will require total different approval level. So the deal with all that is we are having this 123 million to develop the technology, not just for burn. Now we're expanding it to other indications, and we have this 149 million to commercialize it. It's a procurement and deployment type of contract, and we will move this product, this new technology, into the real practice.
Really great explanation. What more can you tell us about how artificial intelligence is improving patient care, but also reducing the cost of healthcare?
Simon, you want to address that first?
Yeah, we've focused away from the providers. I think it's a pretty high bar to expect this type of technology, at least in the generative AI space, to be used at the provider level, because that's technically decision support. And I just think I have a lot of admiration for companies that are going after that. It's a pretty high bar, though. We're really focused on the industry. So, our target user is going to be the knowledge worker. So that could be any analyst, any ClinOps person at a biotech, you name it. Everyone's looking to get the answers they need to write the clinical trial, to target physicians who should be prescribing their drugs, to match patients to clinical trials, what have you. And it's a huge industry. I think we've learned that there are no new problems, really. I'm sure there are some new ones, but the old ones still haven't been addressed too effectively. And this type of technology, the ChatGPT, generative AI type technology, could really move the needle on a lot of these old problems that were really expensive and very high friction to try and solve for. Again, going back to spending months with a data science team to try and build something that solves or predicts for one disease state or one readmission problem or whatever it happens to be. But for now, any knowledge worker to not have to rely on a data science team, to have a direct interaction with the data, to be able to get ahead of problems and prevent certain expensive or bad events from happening using this type of technology, and to do all of that without a data scientist needing to put you in the queue or the backlog for months and months, is going to really revolutionize, I think, the entire industry. And there's a whole sea change coming across just about every use case as a result of this. I think that's trillions in savings over the long run.
Wen-Shan, we'll start with you. What kind of regulatory guidelines, what challenges does that represent as you look to grow and make a difference when it comes to patient care or either growth within the industry?
Regulatory plays a key role in our line of work because this is a medical domain products, and we follow FDA, MHRA, HPRA, and everybody, the regulatory bodies. I think the relationship is never against each other. I agree with one of the speakers earlier this morning. It's actually a collaborative process. We have been evolving and developing with FDA on the understanding of the AI and the guidelines for AI products and the implementation of those new guidelines. For example, we're a software company, AI software company, after all this hardware being implemented. So how do you continuously collect data, improve on the performance, when to release those in a structured way? What's your software maintenance plan? Those are well developed with FDA's guidelines and everything. We actually work with a world-class clinical research network, and we have been engaging with the clinical team to actually bring the data to the AI world. I mean, to the AI world, at the end of the day, data is the utmostly important assets. And we, with regards to the regulatory bodies, we figured that the data integrity is superbly important. What does FDA or any regulatory body, what do they look for? And they look for a real clear, by the book, and real solid clinical data to show the evidence for your performance. And we have collected through organized from one center to many, from just a small number of enrollments to very large. We just finished the world's largest randomized clinical trial in burn. And for all these things, we actually need to worry about the data integrity, how you collect the data, how you build the independent validation data sets to validate your performance. Those are very much needed. Working collaboratively with regulatory bodies is actually something we greatly benefit from ever since 10 years ago. 2014, when we started this whole journey, we worked with FDA on confounding parameters. For AI, we all know how to not have a model that's overfitting into a specific scenario. You only work for a small thing, but you cannot truly become a product for the all. So with FDA's help, we not only have our confounding parameters set to we work with wound to start, right? So the color of the skin, the age, the gender, they all play a huge role. The region, the nutrition level, all these different things are included already early on, agreed with FDA, clinical partners, and everybody. And we also went one step ahead beyond those common suspects in our confounding parameters, is actually how the disparity between all these different clinical sites. And those hospitals, they might practice differently. However, slightly, you have to encounter all those differences in your data collection, in your model building. So that's how we feel we have a robust, that will statistically reproducible results to go from, say, Boston to Louisiana to the California, back to the Laguna Beach area and that kind of thing. So that is how we have the confidence, because we already built our model in that way. So collaboration with FDA, with all the regulatory bodies, we actually are the beneficiaries from that. Of course, we're evolving together, continuous communication. We are a FDA breakthrough designated technology in burn indication since 2017. We're the truly disruptive for the most vicious problem in burn. And we have been having, as I counted, 9 pre-sub meetings with the FDA for the past 6 years already. We open our books, whether it's our data development plan, clinical study protocols. We're the open book to FDA. We know them on a first name basis already, I guess. And so that level of communication and that kind of a mutual collaboration put us to a very good stage with the regulatory bodies.
So, I mean, what kind of unique challenges might you face with your analysts, your end users, your data scientist team? What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think adoption is the big thing that comes to mind. I swore I'd never start another company that sold expensive software to big enterprises ever again. And lo and behold, came back, started this company, and then after talking to some of those big companies, I think it validated that goal. And it was because with the early technology being so exciting, because it was so early though, these companies did not form up use cases that they could put budgets behind. And so we were thinking, how do we make this pervasive? We know everyone wants to use this type of technology, but they don't quite know what it's going to be, what it's going to be doing for them in the future. And so we decided to go with a Dropbox model where we'd make this really easy for individuals, just like ChatGPT, if you will, where you pay your $20 to get 4.0 and it can do these amazing things. So we're coming out with a single user version so that we can land within these biotech, pharma, provider type organizations. Then they'll go up and they'll have some great prompts and use cases. Then they'll get their team involved. And then when they really get to understand how powerful this could be, they're going to start lobbying for bigger budgets to do a bigger co-pilot or application embedded into existing systems or applications that they've developed. And so adoption and democratization is what comes to mind in a big way. And I don't think you get there by trying to boil the ocean up front on something that's just so brand new.
I think we have one more question before we open it up to the floor.
Sure.
So what more can you tell us about ChatGPT and its mass appeal? Everyone seems to talk about it, maybe want more of it, but then there's this great trepidation as to how much we want it to be a part of our lives.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how many people here have used it or who hasn't used it before? Everyone, I think, gets excited by the capabilities of this stuff. And again, the way to make this pervasive is to put it in as many hands as possible. But there's no one application that's going to be the killer application. This will be used across the board in so many different segments of the industry and so many different use cases that it'll be up to the imagination. And then you're going to get those areas of traction within a company where people can start pulling together, benefiting from groupthink, and then making these bigger enterprise decisions that can really move the needle across entire patient populations or all users in an organization. But again, there's a lot holding that back right now. There are some big pharma companies who have banned the use of ChatGPT for all of the reasons I pointed out before. So there's just massive potential, but I think that is also what is the enemy of true adoption, because it's just so exciting, but there's nothing specific.
So that should put the ball on the tee for any further questions, whether it's regarding GPT or anything else. Any questions?
We have a question over here.
Yeah, actually for both of you, hallucination. So hallucination is pretty well known in the chat GPT world where the AI will come up with its own answer and it's not true. How is this in imaging, or how is this in, a trained environment addressed? How do you guys think about hallucination?
I think I was at one of the major investment bank, and the receptionist was leading me to the conference room, and she says, "I'm so afraid of AI. It creates all these things that are not true." And I said, "That's a very good understanding to start with. We need to be aware of it. We really need to, and we also need to be careful about how the product being rolled out and things in that nature." And we are using AI. I told her, I said, okay, for what we do, if you're looking at 50 screens, maybe NFL games on 50 screens, can you follow it? You just can't. You can't figure out what's going on those screens. But those type of jobs are the better fit for the deep learning, machine vision, all these wonderful things. And we are using the AI techniques that are truly trying to help the humans to make those complicated decisions. But healthcare providers should be the true decision makers for any medical procedure. That's my belief. That's our belief. And we're providing a expert with all this consolidated information. You actually bring them with a much actable decision to do. I was sitting across the table with Dr. Ronnie Chan, the chief burn surgeon at the U.S. Army Hospital in San Antonio. And he said, I have all these wonderful toys in my OR. I can measure the blood perfusion, oxygen saturation, temperature, everything. But I'm a surgeon. I need to know where to cut. So I turned my laptop around. I said, Doc, all I'm showing you is where to cut. Because I've taken all of those physiology measurements and I make all the conclusions based upon not by artificially generated data, but by our great 263 billion and growing database, clinically validated database, that to move our technology forward to make that conclusion. So in other words, in my shallow understanding of this side, I feel if we could still using the truly trustworthy database for our AI algorithms, that's a foundation for how we do business in the healthcare space. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, just on that, hallucination is obviously a big thing. It's getting a lot of press time. There's a lot of airtime that's going to these big platform foundational models. So think ChatGPT or Bard. More recently, Hippocratic with AWS. And those require massive clusters of GPU, et cetera, But because they're so general, they're probably more apt to hallucination. But what we're seeing over time is much more narrow and defined, focused large language models being developed and truly trained on very narrow, specific, but deep segments of the industry. So think of a genetics or genomics language model. Think of one that's just trained on claims data, what have you, and you could pick and choose between those. One thing we decided not to do was actually create our own large language model. There were companies that have done that and they've been funded, et cetera. But every week a new technology is coming out. So what's the risk of obsolescence? It's really, really high. So what we decided to do from day one was, because we're all enterprise software people, is to create an orchestration engine which can orchestrate between as many as 10, 20, or 50 large language models in the future that knows exactly where to go to handle the request, and then to tune the platform with the 220 million patients and longitudinal data that we have, but also bring in a lot of public data from PubMed and clinicaltrials.gov, anything that can support future requests in this segment of this industry of ours, so that it's just much more intelligent. And we hope that the EQ, IQ of our platform will be much higher, and it's much less likely to hallucinate as a result, because it's just built purpose fit.
Is your orchestration layer on-prem and cloud?
or a hybrid solution for enterprise clients?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, because we do this, have done this for a living for many years. My CTO, who I worked with 2 companies ago, he was my CTO there. He was the CTO at Sun Microsystems for web services, which was called SOA at the time, and so he knows this stuff pretty well. But Docker came out, and then Kubernetes, which means that these things are truly portable to an on-prem solution. We have a government conversation going on in Australia right now, strangely enough, not strangely enough, which basically requires a completely kind of Loctite, non-connected to the internet instance, just for security reasons. And so the architecture must support those types of implementations, and also the concept of federated learning too, where the client, they bring their own data, and of course it's secure, but they don't necessarily want to upload it to our cloud.
Right.
They want to keep it there. So if we can take the analytic to them and their data without having to replicate it in our cloud, that federation is also important. So the ability of having kind of this loosely coupled architecture that can support all of those use cases becomes really important.
Sure.
All right, so quickly, I'll try to do this quickly. Having an algorithm that can pick out, some sort of a wound that is going to not break, not be able to heal, et cetera, is amazing. Can you get the AI or the algorithm to reverse engineer and tell you what it is that it sees that makes it different? Because that could be the next step for a target for a wound healing drug.
And just as people telling us when they got to know we are actually sitting on the world's largest the injured tissue biopsy tissue bank, that pharma company can utilize that for their drug development. And for this, what we capture using our proprietary imaging technology is actually a tissue health assessment. So what they truly capture are the injured tissue spectral signature. And that's what the most important thing for all the different types of injuries that can be recovered, cannot be recovered. We literally work with dermatologists, pathologists, and all the wound care society to define the regeneration capability of the tissue already. So what you're talking about, in part, we're on our way to do those kind of things. It's not a reverse engineering. I would call it a much better, deeper understanding of why the certain tissues will never regenerate. So right now we're doing it we started with U.S. government support on burn, and we already evolved into diabetic foot ulcer. We actually have the world's best, in my humble opinion, of a 3D wound size measurement, because size tracking is very important. It's compliance related for documentation purpose. Then we're getting into the digital guided therapy, not just tell whether this wound will heal or not, but which of the skin substitute products will be better fit for that type of the wound. That's exactly the direction we're getting to. I become that little sesame to open the doors for all these advanced wound care products. That's the goal, to actually expand this indication, not just by this, but from here to go to the broader, serve the downstream product lines.